Already, good noonday to you. We have made it through the resurrection celebration, and then we took just a few days off to rest and to recuperate, and we are back. Thank God for you. Hopefully, you are being safe, sensible, smart, and of course, prayerful. Again, welcome back to Noonday. If this is your first time joining us, we hope and pray it will not be your last. You will be blessed today. We've been talking about the mouth, the tongue, and how, as followers of the Lord Jesus Christ, this is part of our stewardship, it's part of our discipleship, that our speech should also be disciplined, it should be discipled. And we want to be sensitive to our choice of words, the timing of those words, such that we will build people up instead of tear them down. And so this is, I think, session number 11, where we have been talking about the tongue. And so today we are going to talk about another type of tongue, and that is the rude tongue. I want to show you a little clip of something, and before we get to a definition, you'll be surprised at the definition of rude. But if you take a look at the clip there, who's being rude? Is it the young lady who wants to eat lunch but cannot because of the other young lady who continues to talk? Or is it the young lady who wants to eat but who wants to eat as opposed to fellowship or conversate with the other young lady? Can we not eat and converse at the same time? Well, you be the judge of that clip in terms of who's being rude. I'm sure we've all met people like that who are quite talkative, and even with being talkative, there's a time to talk and there's a time to, of course, be quiet. But let me give you a definition of the word rude itself. It is lacking the graces of civilized life. Let me say that again, lacking the graces of civilized life. We were created for fellowship. We were created for relationships. We were created in the image of God, and so therefore we should treat others knowing that they have been created in God's likeness, and we should want others to also treat us because we too have been created in God's likeness and in God's image. And so to be rude to someone is in some way uncivilized behavior. Have you thought about it like that? To be rude to someone, we are treating them less than what they really are. And for someone to be rude to us, they're doing the same. They're doing the same to us. So let's get to what makes us rude. Well, there's a list. Sometimes it's impatience. We have just not taken time out to slow down. Sometimes it's impatience. Another is because of busy schedules. Sometimes we're just moving. We are on the go. We're always doing something. Some of us don't know how to do nothing. And sometimes as a result of us being on the move, being on the go, always doing something, we respond in ways to people that we are really being uncivilized. So you have impatience, that factors into our rude behavior, busy schedules, the stress of daily living. We're living in a stressful time. I don't know there's ever been a time where it hadn't been stressful. And part of our DA is that we have to deal with stress, but we don't have to live in stress. And that's the importance of our spirituality. That's the importance of exercising. That's the importance of taking care of ourselves, because it serves as a buffer. It serves as a filter such that stress is not having its way with us. We are confronting stress. We are facing stress. We know it's part of our earthly experience. But again, there's a difference between living in stress and living with stress. So, the stress of daily living. I mean, sometimes we can be matter of fact. Sometimes we can be short. Sometimes our words can be cutting. And sometimes it's the result of stress. And we take it out on the next available person. But then there is anxiety. Some of us do not know how not to worry. We worry when we're not worried about anything. I mean, we worry about everything. We worry about the weather. We worry about our wealth. We worry about our children. We worry about the church. We worry about the past. We worry about the present. We worry about the future. I mean, we just worry. And we have not learned how to literally give what's burdening us to the Lord. God tells us to cast our cares upon him because he cares. But some of us, we just don't know how to give it to God. Sometimes we wrestle with things in our sleep because we have not let go of those things before it was time to go to bed. There is a decompression, a process of getting rid of the day's burden before we lay down to sleep. It has to do with what we're reading. It has to do with what we're listening to. It has to do with what we're envisioning. All of that is part of coming down so that we can relax. You know, God calls Moses and he tells him he's on the holy ground and take your shoes off. I believe that when it comes time to go into sleep, God wants us to take some stuff off and give it to him as well. So sometimes it's just the stresses of the day. It's anxiety. And the Bible tells us not to be what? Anxious. But sometimes because of anxiety, we will cut people off. We are easily frustrated and we are agitated, and all of this in some way makes us rude. But then lastly, selfishness. We should consider the thoughts, the feelings of others. But there are times when it's all about our way. It's all about our agenda. And so if anyone disagrees with us, if anyone feels differently, if anyone thinks differently, if anyone has another take on something, then we just cut them off and we cut them up. Sometimes we're just rude. It is because sometimes we are selfish. Well, let me give you this statement of summation. Regardless of how you're feeling, regardless of what has happened to you, regardless of the times in which we live, there is never a justification for being rude. Never. There's never a justification for being rude. I want to pause to see if we got any questions at this point. All righty, we will keep moving. So here again, remember a definition for rude. It is lacking the graces of civilized life. It is forgetting that we have all been created in God's image and likeness, and so we should treat one another as such. Well, let's move to, I'll give you a couple of examples of acts of rudeness or acts of social misconduct. And I think, here again, sometimes we can do something for so long we are even unconscious that we are doing it. And we're not even aware that it's offensive. We're not even aware that we shouldn't be doing it. We're not even aware how it's impacting the lives of others and even how it impacts the way others view us. Sometimes because of our rudeness, people don't want to be around us. People don't want to spend time with us because of our rude acts and even social misconduct. One is, we could call it discourteous drivers. We've all seen them. Did you hear what I said? We've seen them. We have seen them. They are discourteous drivers. These people will tell you how they feel about your driving. Yeah, you don't have to imagine. They will tell you. They will use body parts they know hand and they know hand. in sign language. They know all of that, and they would do something to let you know that they do not appreciate your driving, a move you've made, your speed limit, etc. So we see these are acts of rudeness. This is social. We could call this social misconduct, and hence we've all experienced road rage. People have lost their lives because of road rage. Here's another example. Don't you just love when someone is on the phone with somebody else and they got it on speaker? And for whatever reason, they think that everybody else wants to hear what they are talking about. And they do it in stores, they do it everywhere. And so having a public conversation, your phone on speaker, that is an act of rudeness. That's disrespectful. That's invading the space. That's bringing people in on a part of conversation they don't want to have any part. And so that's an act of rudeness. But we see people do it all the time. It happened the other day. And you can look at them and they look at you. It's like, it's something they're not even aware. It's like, okay, what's wrong with what I'm doing? Everybody don't want to know what everybody's talking about. So that is an act of rudeness. It's selfish because we have invaded the space. We have invaded an area. Sometimes people just want to be quiet. They don't want to be a part of anything. Sometimes they just want to walk and hear silence. But some people on their phone and they put it on speaker. And I can't get this. If the speaker is on, why are they shouting? Why is it they get louder when the phone is on speaker? Now I know you don't do that, but we all know people who would do that. Let me give another example of social misconduct. That is answering the phone in church or answering the phone in a meeting. Most of us know we're coming to church when we're coming to church. Most of us know we're having a meeting when we have a meeting. Most of us know this. So the thing to do is to silence the phone. That's the thing to do. Well, we've all seen people. I've never seen members of Mount Olive answer a call in church. But I know some pastors who have said they've seen some members who not only take the call, but lean over and try to whisper during church. Never happened at Mount Olive. But I tell you, I had some pastor friends tell me, how rude can that be? They will literally take the call in service. But that's an act of social misconduct. Now, we all know emergencies happen. We understand that. So if you're in a meeting, you're going to a meeting, say, listen, I'm expecting a really serious call. I don't know if I'm going to get it during the meeting, but I have to take this call. And so I'm going to have my phone on vibrate, or I'm going to have it on silent. I may periodically look at it. So I just want to let you know that that may take place during our time. Now that's being considerate of others. To not do that is to be rude. Here's another example of social misconduct or an act of rudeness. What about you're in a checkout line and cashiers are talking to each other? Now, they hadn't spoken to you yet, but they're talking about when they're going to get their hair did. They are talking about what they had for dinner. Just talking about everything that has nothing to do with giving you excellent customer service. And so that is social misconduct. Here's another one. I don't want to beat these up. Have you ever been talking to someone and they finish the sentence for you? That's social misconduct. That's rudeness. And what that is saying is that they really are not interested in what you are saying, but they want to interject their thoughts, their opinions, and so they will finish the sentence for you. That's rude. Here's another one. You're in a conversation and someone changes the subject. They change what you all were talking about. And then there's the last one. There's so many, but here's another one. Abruptly ending a conversation. Just shutting you down. I mean, I've seen this take place with some of our older sisters and brothers, some of our grandparents. If they say bye, you best believe that conversation is over. And if they get once they are finished with what they want to talk about, you better make sure that you get yours in, because that phone you're going to hear that dial tone. Well, back in the day, you hear dial tone. But if they're done, they're going to hang that phone up quickly. Or if they call you and ask you a question, well, I was just saying, okay, take care, bye. That's it. But of course, I think that's a generational type of thing. And we have respected them, and it's no big issue. But on another level, it can be an issue where individuals, once they have finished their part, once they have shared, then they will abruptly end the conversation. That can be considered social misconduct. Well, statement of summation here. Some acts are discourteous, they are disruptive, they are disrespectful, and they are or can be denigrating. Okay? So we have to be careful with what we have grown accustomed to doing. We've been doing it for so long. No one has ever brought it to our attention. And so we've just done it for a long time. I think we'll pause right here and see if we have any questions. Any questions, guys? Okay? All right? Okay. The question is it rude for me to call you out on your rudeness? We're going to get to that as it relates to application. We're going to get to that later on in the conversation. Okay? Yes. Absolutely. What about it when Pastor putting it down? Y'all know I'll be laying it down. And then you got somebody else who's a biblical scholar, and they attempt to finish what I'm going to say as though they know what I'm going to say. That is rudeness. We are to compliment, we are to agree with, we are to respond and so forth, but we are never to take over that particular oral presentation. Not only in preaching, but in any other setting, when you have a presenter, when you have a facilitator, and individuals in the audience try to take over, try to finish again the presenter's statement. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. Yep. Okay. Any other questions about rudeness? Okay. Okay. So let's move to Scripture now. Let's have a little talk about Scripture. See what it says. One passage I want us to address in short. Isaiah 35 and 8. Isaiah 35 and 8. And it reads this is the New Revised Standard Version. A highway shall be there, and it shall be called the Holy Way. The unclean shall not travel on it, but it shall be for God's people. No traveler, not even fools, shall go astray. The Message paraphrase is not a translation, it is literally a paraphrase. It includes on the list as it relates to unclean fools, it calls out the rude or the rebellious. And so it says, the rude or the rebellious shall not travel on it. Wouldn't that be something if we had a highway? That people who were rude or rebellious couldn't travel on it. But there's no such thing, is it? And that is the other reason why you and I, when we are traveling, not only roads, streets, etc., but as we travel through life, the highway of life, we should be careful and cautious in how we speak to others, our choice of words, the timing of those words, and something else that we're not always cognizant of, and that is the tone of our words, or the sound of our words, the volume of our words. Sometimes we get excited, and that sometimes can be rude, because if we're in a closed environment, space is limited, and we're talking like the person is 5 blocks or 5 houses from we are, and we're yelling over the fence to be heard. No, it's not the case. So we have to not only be careful with the tone of our, the tone and the timing of our words. We got to be careful with all that. But again, that's what Isaiah 35:8 talks about. It talks about a highway, a passage, and this is God's way. And here again, and this is not proof texting this passage in terms of interpretation or even application, but as we are moving about, as we're going in and out in our comings and our goings, we should want to represent God, and not only what we do with our lives, but even how we communicate and how we speak to others. So that is a way to interpret Isaiah 35 and verse number 8. But then there is Luke 6. This is a familiar passage to most of us, and it's about the golden rule. And it simply says in verse number 31, do to others as you would have them do to you. There are many people that's their favorite Bible verse. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't do anything to somebody that you don't want to do to you. I mean, on and on. People have used this particular passage as the golden rule in terms of responding to others in a way that you would want them to respond to you. But then listen to Paul's love chapter, as many call it, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And we want to zero in on verses 4 and 5. And here, of course, it's talking about love, and love, action. Love is what love does. So listen to what Paul says in verse number 4. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant. Verse 5, or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. Doesn't that sound good? That is what you call civilized behavior. Okay. To be rude is uncivilized. Okay. To treat people as if they are less than, to treat people as though we are more than, that is uncivilized behavior. And so here, Paul reminds us that to be rude is just the opposite of how one should behave when they say, I love you. And of course, we should love all people because we were created in the image and the likeness of God. So look at this statement of summation as it relates to our love for God. Our love for God, here is this God who we have this vertical relationship, and our love for God plays itself out in how we treat one another. Here is the vertical. I love God. I've never seen God. But then it plays itself out in the horizontal, how I treat those who I see often. So here again, this rudeness, it has to do with the types of relationship we have with people and how we have in some way become selfish to some degree in those relationships. That's just one example, again, of what makes us rude. So listen to this statement of summation. Shouldn't our love for God and the desire to represent him well have an impact on our day-to-day behavior? Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. How can we say we love God whom we've never seen? And we have disdain, okay? We frown upon, we hate, we disrespect our sisters and brothers whom we have daily encounters with. So, again, this God who we have not seen, it's vertical, but it plays itself out in how I treat others. The debt I owe God is payable to humanity. That is to say, I owe God gratitude, I owe him generosity, I owe God wealth, I owe God everything. And because God is interested in people and in impacting the lives of others positively, I can demonstrate my gratitude to God in how I treat my sisters and my brothers. There are some people that God would want to communicate and convey his love to, but they cannot get it, but yet God can use me as a conduit, and that the love of God that is in me can manifest itself in the flesh so that a person now has a sense of what the love of God looks like. You know, we embody the very presence of God all the time as his people. So again, think about it now. How we treat one another, we are representing God, and we want to treat others the way God has treated us. People don't always treat us the way we want to be treated, but we have to treat others the way God has treated us and the way we want God to continue to treat us. And we want our witness to be positive, to be strong as we deal with one another. We don't want to have a sour testimony among the believers. We want to have a strong testimony. Remember, Jesus says, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, and by this all men would know you are my disciples. All right, just before we go to the last category, we want to stop and entertain. I think we have a couple of questions, okay? Let's go. All right, who we go? Who's asking? Okay. Just before people go to sleep, that's probably not the best time to talk about certain issues or certain topics. Or just when you began the day is not necessarily the best time to talk about it. Or when someone has had a bad experience and is fresh, that may not be the time to talk about it. Or it's not a person's peak time. That's not the best time to talk about it. Or persons in the middle of handling something, it's probably not the best time. So if you want to talk about something, we're going to talk about this specifically when we get to category 4, you got to be sensitive to not only your schedule, but also the schedules of others. And so be selective about, there's something I'd like to share with you about something that happened, an incident that happened yesterday or happened this morning. I have some time later today, or I have time now. What about you? That's what I mean by timing. That way you are not being selfish. You are taking into consideration that is another human being. There is another person who matters, and so on and so forth. And you are trying to restore the relationship. Make sure the fellowship is together, it's tight. So that's what we mean by timing. Okay? Take into consideration the moment. Your moment as well as the person's moment. What's the other question? What a question. Thank you, Leroy. Can rudeness be the product of one's home situation, one's upbringing? Absolutely, yes, sir. Here again, more is caught than taught. We come up in these environments where people do what they do without thinking, say what they say without taking it back. And that is a culture. Now, you bring somebody in that situation, and they would see that as hostile. They would see that as, oh, my goodness. and they love each other. So yeah, that can be the product of one's upbringing, one's environment, where people are loud. They don't take turns talking. It's a shouting match, and whoever gets the loudest for the longest gets the trophy. Yeah, that can be a product of one's environment. And then sometimes people who have a hearing deficiency talk loud. So you got to take that in consideration also. People have worked various places, and they just talk loud. They've been doing that for 40 years for 5 days a week, and they haven't been able to shut it off or to in some way deal with it when they're not in that environment. So yes, to your original question, being that type of behavior, that type of conduct, it could have, and again, sometimes people are not even aware of it. This is the way we talk to each other. We showed a clip of this some time ago on the Andy Griffith Show, where this husband and wife, they went at it all the time, loud. So from the outside looking in, it's like, I don't want to go in. That's okay. So yes, the original question. Any other question about rudeness? Okay. Okay, so let's get to this last category, and that is, what if someone is rude to us? What if someone is rude to us? If someone hangs up in your face, call them back and hang up in theirs. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. Guests, visitors, I play like that sometimes, okay? Now, we know that's not the case because that is too much like retaliation. We talked about the retaliation tone. That's too much like getting back at others. And so that is not the thing that we do as it relates to when someone is rude to us. Here are a couple of action steps or application to this particular situation. We confront them, but not in a non-offensively way. We do confront them. We do have to, as Barb called in, how do you deal with it? Well, you address it. I just have to share this. For the last 2 or 3 weeks, the way you have talked to me, I just want to share that with you, that I was wondering, what's up with that? And so I'd like to talk to you about that. So here again, if you come off too aggressive, then they're going to assume the defense posture, and now what happens is dispositions, emotions have now kicked in, and we've stopped thinking. All we're doing is feeling. And now, so I got to, you're not calling me in check. Who do you think you are calling me? No, it's not even about that. So you have to choose your words wisely, but you got to confront it. But don't do it offensively. So you can confront it, but again, not offensively. Again, and it's the choice of words, it's the timing, and let them know. Because what that is that you're not trying to check somebody, but you are holding them accountable. See, people confuse when you're talking to them, you're holding them accountable. Some people don't want to hear from you, and they think you against them. No, I'm just holding you accountable. And we have to. People sometimes have to know that you may not say anything, but that don't mean you don't have any expectations. Or you may not be loud, but that don't mean you are weak or you're dismissing the way they have responded to you. So our threshold in terms of rudeness to some degree is longer and deeper than others. And so we say to ourselves, that's the last time you're going to talk to me like that. Now, we don't come out like that because I'm fighting words. But we do to ourselves, okay, all right, I got to deal with this. And so you make up your mind, you take a deep breath, you come up with a strategy, you come up with a plan as to deal with it. So you got to confront it. If people are never called into question, if it's never addressed, they will continue to do it, not only to you, but to everybody else. So that's one thing. Number two, you have to demonstrate patience. You have to. Patience is a part of it. I think, what if patience was not one of God's divine attributes? Where would I be? I mean, where would any of us be? Where would any of us be if God just tolerated us instead of God was patient with us? You know, I sometimes wonder how many guardian angels have I gotten rid of because they just couldn't handle me. I'm just, using that in general. But you think about that now. Think about it. You have to demonstrate patience. And I'm telling you something, it's challenging. I know it's challenging. It is tough sometimes applying patience, but you have to demonstrate it. And sometimes what God will do is that he will use rude people, okay, to train us in this area of patience. By the way, it's an aspect of the fruit of the Spirit. So I need to say, wait a minute. So love, kindness, patience, and so forth, no law against it and so forth. So if I'm short on patience, then somewhere along the way, I have not been growing spiritually. I'm not maturing spiritually. Because if I got to tell you every time how I'm feeling without just dismissing it or praying about it, I've got to get my word in. I got to have the last say. I've got to demonstrate patience, okay? And it's a work in, most of us are a work in progress. So we demonstrate patience. Where would we be if God had not exercised patience with us? And some people, you got to treat them like they're a little child. You're babysitting. You got to move stuff out of that child's way, and you got to move the child out of things' way. And some people, you got to know certain topics, certain times, certain buttons. You can't deal with them because they will respond in rude, short. The topics are too sensitive, and they will blow you away. So you got to demonstrate patience. Okay. Here's another one. You got to take the high road. Somebody got to take the high road, Michelle Obama. Somebody got to take the high road. When they go low, we go high. You got to take the high road. And here again now, our maturation, the level of our maturation as it relates to being disciples, and part of disciple is discipline. Okay, and so part of being disciplined is watching the words that we use. So take the high road. And an example of taking the high road is when I use about the phone. Somebody hang up on you, okay. Somebody call you and just give you this long, drawn out conversation. Just say, okay. Okay, that's fine. All right. So those are examples of taking the high road. Okay. Now, what happens if we are the someone who's being rude to others? Let's reverse it. Let's flip it. Well, if we are the ones being rude, then we have to always be prepared to do a couple of things. Number one, we have to be prepared to repent. Now, sometimes you and I make the mistake of telling people we're sorry before we have repented to God for what we've done. The first offense is against God and God himself. Okay? It is not necessarily, the first step is not necessarily to quickly say I'm sorry, because sometimes it comes across as being superficial. So you gotta, things happen. We stand a better chance of being effective when we give time and we give them space. And we call back later, or we text, or whatever we do. Say, listen, what I said back then, I never should have said, I am so sorry. Sometimes we can give people a look that's rude. Like you're doing now, Christy, that's rude right there. Yeah. When I'm preaching, I get rude looks. You know, all of that. Those are rude. Those are, yeah, Christy not doing that. I was just playing. I was just using it as an example. Okay. But again, so back to when we're the ones being rude, we need to repent. Okay. Then we need to apologize to the individual in some way. Now, if we are being rude to someone publicly, then we need to apologize to them publicly. That is to say, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to get keyboard courage and apologize to you. No, face to face. If I did something to you face to face, that's what I mean public. It needs to be a public apology. I'm not saying, Pastor, I got something to say today at church. No, you ain't going to have that opportunity because we'd be here all day. But it is publicly. If you have been rude to someone publicly, then don't hide behind the phone. Because we get some courage on that phone, don't we? That's keyboard courage. No, it's public. If I did something publicly to you, then I need to, when I can see you and you can see me, then I need to apologize. So we repent of it, but then we apologize, and then we have to recommit to following God's golden rule, and that is do unto others as you would have them do to you. Every time you and I fall off, okay, you got to recommit. You have to hit the reset button. You got to restart. You have to request for a do-over. God, give me another chance because I blew it then. Sometimes you and I, we blow. Sometimes you and I, we fire back. Sometimes we don't even we don't even hear what people are saying. We immediately respond back. That's rudeness. That's part of finishing the statement. That's part of changing the subject because we have stopped listening and we have started to talk. So all of that's part of what makes us rude. So this last statement, slow down, and take the time to do unto others as I would have them do unto me. But on a higher level, do unto others as we want God to do to me and how God has treated me. Do we have any more questions about the rude tongue? Will people just receive it as offensively no matter what? Absolutely. Some people are just that way. They're just that way. And that speaks of again, their level of maturity. That speaks of selflessness. That speaks of insecurities. Some people cannot handle being wrong. They have to be right. Some people, okay, what did I do now? What did I say now? I know, I know I did something wrong because you just add it to the list. Okay, whatever. And that's the wrong disposition. They're not ready to receive it. But some people have that woe is me disposition. They cannot handle, and I mentioned this earlier, maybe clearer now, they cannot handle being accountable or being held accountable. That was not right. There's another way to say that. There's another way to do that. And I'd like to talk to you about that. And some people can't handle that. They cannot handle that. Okay? So some people are just going to, for them, there is no right way for you to do it. But it's on them, but you've got to share it and not get it off your chest so much as convey it, communicate it, share it with them, and let them be the ones to wrestle with what they're going to do with it and how they're going to handle it. Okay? Any other questions about the rude tongue? Okay. I'm asking God about this highway. I want y'all to join in with me about that highway, okay? so we can get rid of road rage, you know, shopping cart rage. That's my seat rage at church, and on and on and on. All right? Are we good? All right? We good? All righty. Well, we look forward to tomorrow night's Bible study. We'll return to the Red Sea crossing. And again, maybe you're at the very beginning of that Red Sea. Maybe you have actually begun to take steps through it. Maybe you are halfway through it. Maybe you've reached the end, but you're still in it. Or maybe God has literally brought you through it. Regardless of where you are, there's a response designed from you. And so we want to talk about, we're going to continue that conversation by moving from Exodus chapter 14 to Exodus chapter 15. And we want to kind of describe that response of the Israelites once they had in fact been brought through. They were not brought over that Red Sea. They went through it. It's kind of like the only way for you to learn how to drive in the snow is that you got to drive in the snow. So the only way you're going to know how to conduct yourself, how to respond to Red Seas, that you've literally got to go through the Red Sea. So we'll resume that conversation on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Well, God bless you. Continue to be safe, be smart, be sensible, and prayerful. I think we got another question. All right, what's that question? Okay. I think the people that we have influence with, we need to share that with them. I think also if we are out and there are people who are not doing that, then we need to take the responsibility and do the distancing ourselves. I was out running yesterday, and this husband and wife, they were pushing their child in a stroller. And so when they were approaching me, guess what I did? I crossed the way. I'm not going to even deal with that. And so we use our influence again, but then we also, we share with others, we need to do this about social distancing in light of our current situation, but then we become proactive. I mean, we don't take up the attitude, you need to get over, you need to move away, or we look at them. No, just go ahead and move. Sometimes turn around and go another aisle. Do whatever we need to do to diffuse sometimes the situation. All right? So a great question. All right, any other questions? All righty. Have a good rest of the day. Be safe. Take care.
Everybody celebrate the Lord. We lift his name. We lift his high name. Somebody celebrate him. Put your hands together. We bless your name, Jesus. You're worthy, yes you are. The name